This is a quick demonstration of some of the cool changes in vSphere 5.1 and the latest version of the VNX operating environment that makes multipathing easier. So this involves two things. First things first, let's look at the ESXi side of the house. So at the top window here, we've got an ESXi 5.0 GA build, and we're going to use some of the PowerShell commandlets for EMC storage and take a look at things. So first things first, if you take a look, you can see that we've got 4 paths here. They're going into SPA, that's the SP module slot, but the current owner is B and the default owner of the LUN is B. You'll notice that we're using the fixed multipathing policy. So what that means is that right now the I/O is going down an unoptimized path, which you can see here. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll say let's set the default preferred owner and go and take a look at that, and you can see that now what we've done is we've switched the I/O paths, and they're going down into storage processor B ports, and they're all mapped to LUNs that are currently owned by storage processor B and default owner B. Again, relatively straightforward for now, so just imagine that. Now let's switch the default owner to A. If the default owner changes, it doesn't necessarily switch who's the current owner. So if you go and you take a look, we now have got IOs coming in on port B for a LUN that is currently owned by storage processor B, but the default owner for some of them is A. So we're going to run the little utility here that will rebalance everything properly, and you can see that now, fantastic, we've got everything back rebalanced. So we've got the IOs going into the correct storage processor on B, but you'll notice that some of them are still unbalanced and unoptimized using the ESX 5.0 GA code. If we do a LUN trespass, and this is basically the way that very non-destructively and very quickly LUNs can move from one storage processor to another on a VNX array, something that's a very strong capability, one that's matured a lot over time as well. Trespasses can occur very, very rapidly now for very large numbers of devices. We just trespassed the LUNs, and you can see that they've trespassed back to their default owners, and we've got everything matched up. Current owner, default owner, and the inbound ports. The point that we're trying to highlight here, right, is that this relationship between the idealized path and host configuration, which LUN is owned by what storage processor, which one's optimized and unoptimized, is relatively complex. And if you switch to round robin, it can get even trickier, right? So conversely, what we're going to show you now is some changes that VMware made in ESX 5.1 that makes things dramatically easier. So what we just did is we just put all of the LUNs to the default owner being storage processor A. And you can see that everything's coming in as optimized I/O coming into A. The current owner is A, the default owner is A, and that's the idealized world. If we switch all of the LUNs to B, you can see that all of the load still comes in on optimized I/O paths. So in other words, where they are coming in on port A, they still come in onto a LUN whose current owner and default owner is properly configured. So in other words, a series of changes in the vSphere layer that make multipathing dramatically easier. Now, this wouldn't have actually been enough, because what we started to find is that the round-robin behavior in vSphere 5.0 wouldn't necessarily trigger LUNs to return to their default owner. And the default owner and current owner matching is important. So what we've got here is we've got Unisphere. You can see that one's running VNX operating environment 31, which was codenamed Franklin, and the one on the right is running the most recent one, which is operating environment 32, which is codenamed Inyo. So here you can see that we've got a LUN on SPA as the default owner, and the current owner is A. And we've got the same configuration on the other side. So we've got default owner A, current owner A. So if we now go and we say, let's change some of this configuration, And again, what we've got here on the ESX side is we've got the round robin behavior configured. What we're going to do now is we're going to go in and we're going to actually reboot one of the storage processors. So very cool. You can see that Unisphere creates a nice, simple, easy look. You can see the hardware. You can see everything directly there. What we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to say we are going to reboot storage processor A on both systems, which is currently owning all of the LUNs. Now, this is non-disruptive event. Customers do this all the time. It's one of the things that has made non-disruptive upgrades on VNX a great capability, right? Because what happens is all of the LUNs get trespassed over to storage processor B in this particular case. The thing that is interesting is when storage processor A comes back up, does everything return to their default owner? And this is the thing that highlights the differences that occurred both in vSphere and in VNX as we went from one version to another. So you can see that, hey, currently everything on the old version of the EMC infrastructure was on B, which is right, you know, and you can see it's on the new version, it's also on B. By the way, you can see that each one of those LUNs is going to either a 4.1 GA host, a 5.0 GA host, or a 5.1 release candidate host, which is the same behavior in the GA build of vSphere. As we do a refresh, you can see something interesting kind of happen here, right? So basically, whether or not a LUN changes its state varies depending on what version of vSphere you're using. And ideally, remember, you want the things to go back to SPA, which is the default owner. So you can notice here that in the current version of the VNX operating environment, everything returns back to its default owner. And you can see through both of those examples that through code optimizations on the vSphere side in vSphere 5.1 and on the VNX side in the INYO code, the currently GA code, VNX operating environment version 32, it creates a very simple environment where basically you can just set round robin multipathing and forget it, and everything will naturally balance itself out, which is great.